السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم. So it's been a while since we've had another Ramadan reflection session. Been kind of busy past couple of days. And also the surahs, they're getting shorter now, so there's a lot of points to reflect on. Sometimes it just gets overwhelming, and but I really want to share some reflections, even if it's just a little, even if we don't cover every single surah, but just some things that when reciting the Quran in Taraweeh, some things that just impact me in a different way. Just that. So a couple of nights ago we were reciting Surah Shu'araa, and Surah Shu'araa is very interesting. It literally translates to the poets, and the poets at the time of the Prophet ﷺ were like the celebrities and the influencers of today. And so like how we have the Hollywood and the social media influencers, and almost everyone is some kind of influencer nowadays. At that time, the Shu'araa, the poets, they were the influencers, and basically the poet that could mesmerize you with his or her words, that was like the top tier influencer. As it is in some way today, that we have people that can mesmerize other people with words, and they become really famous, they become celebrities. But like any rich person nowadays is automatically, a celebrity. And so this was also the case back then, that the rich people, they were celebrities amongst their people. And what this meant for them is the same what it means for us in today's times. So basically, like how the celebrities today, they set the trends, they they influence and they sway the opinion of people. In the same way, the Shu'araa and the poets at that time, they would go around and they would influence the people with their words, and also just the way they behaved. So people would try to act the way the Shu'araa, the way they behaved, and so they had a lot of influence over the people. And when the Prophet ﷺ came with the message, right, then one of the ways they attacked him was that they dismissed his cause as that of a celebrity and that of an influencer. And the thing about an influencer is that an influencer or a celebrity only cares about himself or herself. And so it's very different that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to paint a picture in this surah that, unlike the influencers, the prophets, they don't care about their own self. They only care about the message that they are given. So they don't care if they are recognized. They don't care if they receive fame in any way. Their only objective is Allah's message is raised up high. Allah's name is raised up high. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is worshipped alone. The amanah that they are given is safely discharged. And that is a beautiful kind of like a contrast between the Shu'araa, the influencers, and the prophets. And we can really see that today, that the influencers and the celebrities, they really only care about themselves. Like they might hop on a cause, but that hopping on a cause, whether it's like an environmental cause or a political cause or some kind of ethical cause, most of the time they're only hopping on this cause and they're only backing this cause so that they could get, social credit. And that's why they do all of this stuff very publicly, right? And I'm not saying that every single celebrity that does this, that they are basically not being genuine. I'm just saying that most of the time, this is what, if your whole, objective is fame, is being famous and being followed by people, then, you are gonna, everything that you do is gonna be for that objective, right? And on the other side, we have the prophets, alayhimus salatu wasalam. And this is the reason why in this surah, Allah talks about all the other prophets, or Allah talks about many other prophets in this surah. And I was thinking, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talk about the other prophets in this surah? And then it just hit me, like, the other prophets, they were also called poets. They were also called, celebrities, or they were basically told that, oh, you're just making this message up so that you can get celebrity status. You're just making this message up so that you can get influencer status, right? And we see this on the most grand scale, which is, the time of Musa alayhi salam, when Fir'aun said, oh, you just want, the people of Egypt to follow you, right? And we can see Allah is saying, no, these people, they don't want you to follow them. They want you to follow me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They are just a means, and they understand that, and they wholeheartedly believe that. They don't care about their own fame. They don't care about if you respect them, or if you hold them in high regard. They want you to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that truly is a very genuine cause. And like the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is backing you up in this niyyah truly shows that the prophets had some next level ikhlas in their niyyah. Because to get God himself to back you up, that you have ikhlasul niyyah, that has to take some serious sincerity on your part. And so there's so many interesting parts of this surah, but of course the highlight and the reason why the surah was named was because of that ayah, which actually comes at the very end. So it's actually ayah number 224. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts with 220. By the way, before we reach this part, the part of Shu'araa, there's a really beautiful part in this surah, which is just on a completely different level. And that is it starts at 213, ayah number 213. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا تَدْعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُعَذَّبِينَ. Basically, do not call upon anyone alongside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lest you may become from those who are punished. وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by extension all of us, and warn your closest family members first. وَاخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And وَاخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ is basically have mercy and also protect, meaning lower your wing for those who follow you from amongst the believers. And so وَاخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ, the bird, lowers the wings, for as a means of love, but also as a means of protection. The bird wants to protect the babies from harm, and so she will use her wings to protect the chicks from harm. And so this muhawara is used many times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used it for our parents as well, that not only do we treat them with mercy, but also we protect them from external threats, from external factors. So here, it's really beautiful. The Prophet ﷺ is being told that first you yourself, come onto the straight path. So you leave shirk, right? And of course, we know the Prophet ﷺ, he was not a mushrik to begin with, but here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us you could say like a qaida, which is like a rule. First, you have to change. فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُعَذَّبِينَ. So first, you understand that shirk is not the way to go. So you leave shirk first, and then after that, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and then you warn your closest family members. And then وَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنِ اتَّبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and for those that follow you from the believers, then you make sure you are good to them, you protect them, and you take care of them. فَإِنْ عَصَوْكَ فَقُلْ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. And if they disobey you, فَإِنْ عَصَوْكَ, if they disobey you, then tell them, إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ, I am dissociated from that which you do. Right? So tell them, I am dissociated from that which you do. And we can see here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically just says, like, if people don't listen to you, right? If people don't listen to the truth, then at the very least, what you can do, or what you should do, is you should dissociate yourself from them. Meaning, you don't have to fight with them. You don't have to argue with them. At the very least, you dissociate yourself and you say, "Inni bari'un mimma ta'malun," and this is going to be something difficult, because if you are calling to the truth and people are against you, right, and you're dissociating yourself with those people, then what's going to happen is that tensions will rise. And when that happens, then Allah says, and this is really beautiful, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْعَزِيزِ الرَّحِيمِ, and have firm reliance, or have 100% tawakkul and reliance, عَلَى الْعَزِيزِ الرَّحِيمِ, on the Almighty and the Most Merciful. And it's really nice how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the two names in like this contrast over here, that we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Almighty, Al-Aziz, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala usually uses this when He discusses punishment. Wallahu azizun dhu intiqam, right? When Allah talks about His punishment, Allah uses the word Aziz. So it shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Almighty. It's a very powerful name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pairs that with Ar-Rahim, the most merciful. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we know that the word Rahim is mercy, but specifically mercy for the mu'mineen, for the believers. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pairs the most powerful and the most the most mighty of His name with the most merciful. That even though Allah is Aziz, Allah is still the most merciful, and Allah is the most loving and the most caring. Rahim comes from the word Rahim, which refers to the mother of the womb of the mother. And the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this name for Himself was because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to show His creation that He loves them more than the mother loves that which is in her womb, and that how the mother doesn't know who the child is yet, doesn't know what the child looks like yet, but the mother still has an uncontrollable love for that child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us even more. And so it's just beautiful how those two names are there, that when tensions rise, when sabr is difficult, then have reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on Al-Aziz and Ar-Rahim. And this really shows us that we should really learn the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because in different moments in our life, we are going to need to, latch on to different names and different, names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, different attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so when the going gets tough, and when people are, against us, then we have tawakkul on Al-Aziz, and we don't forget that, or we don't lose hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We always understand that Allah is the most mighty, the almighty, but Allah is also the most merciful. Subhanallah. And then the next is الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ. And by the way, these two ayat are they should be read together. وَتَوَكَّلَ عَلَى الْعَزِيزِ الرَّحِيمِ الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ. That have firm reliance on the Almighty and the most merciful, the one who watches you, or He sees you when you stand up in prayer. And this is beautiful, because sometimes when we're in that dark tunnel and we're being tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And of course, in this dunya, we are all being tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? But sometimes we feel that the test can be really difficult. And this ayah right here is really beautiful, because it shows us that Allah wants us to have tawakkul on Him, and Allah is telling us that He sees us when we stand up in prayer, right? So it's not like He's ignoring us. So we should never think that Allah is ignoring me, because Allah is saying over here, الَّذِي يَرَاكَ, that He is watching you, or He is looking at you when you stand up in prayer. وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. And the first حين تقوم is when you stand up alone in prayer. وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. And He sees your movements in the congregation. So even when you are in congregation, in like a big gathering of people, He still sees you as an individual. He still sees you. You don't get lost in the crowd. And this is really beautiful, because if every time we prayed and we just thought of these ayat, then this is actually what the meaning of ihsan is. أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. That, when you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you can see Him, or at the very least, فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. At the very least, if you cannot see Him, because that's a really high status, then فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. Then know that He is always seeing you. And it's really beautiful, because sometimes we can go through situations in our life and we wonder that, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing this to me? But we have to understand that Allah knows the struggle that we are going through. Allah knows the sabr that we are making. And it's really beautiful that when we worship Allah, right, Allah sees us in that moment. Allah watches us in that moment. الَّذِي يَرَاكَ حِينَ تَقُومُ. The one who is watching you, or He sees you when you stand up in prayer, and also when you are in congregation with the people, right, with those who are making sajda. When you are making movement with those who are making sajda, you don't get lost in the crowd, but He still sees you. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. He is the one. It is He who is the one who is as-Sami', the all-hearing, al-Alim, the all-knowing, right? So don't ever think that your dua is not being heard, right? And this is something that, just this one section, right? This one section, really, when you are in the lowest point in your life, then if you just reflect on this, you will understand that no matter how far you may think you are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still looking at you, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your struggle. And so you should never think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know what I'm going through, because He sees you, and He knows, and He hears you, and He knows. He is the all-hearing, and He's the all-knowing. And then once we finish that part, and by the way, this is in the entire surah, in Surah Shu'araa. These few ayat are the most beautiful, and they're my favorite part of the ayat, especially when you're reading it in salah, and then you just get that, like, it just hits you, like, I'm reading these ayat, and I am praying right now, and it's like Allah is watching me right now as I'm praying, you know. And then if you're praying in, like, Taraweeh in like a congregation, right? وَتَقَلُّبَكَ فِي السَّاجِدِينَ. It just gives you a different feeling, and this is truly the essence of Ramadan reflections, that we don't want to just read the Quran and not think about the meaning, right? We want to think about the ayat, and we want to increase our iman by reading the Quran. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, and now He's going to talk about the influencers and the Shu'araa, the celebrities. Right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, هَلْ أُنَبِّئُكُمْ عَلَى مَنْ تَنَزَّلُ الشَّيَاطِينَ. That should I tell you upon whom the shaitan descend? تَنَزَّلُ عَلَى كُلِّ أَفَّاكٍ أَثِيمٍ. They descend on every on every lying person, lying, sinful. So kulli affak, the lying, athim, and sinful person. يلقون السمع وأكثرهم كاذبون. They يلقون السمع. They basically pass on what is heard. They pass on what is heard. وَأَكْثَرُهُمْ كَاذِبُونَ. And most of them, they are liars. Meaning most of what they're saying, and most of them, they themselves are liars. وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. And the poets, the influencers and the celebrity, يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. The one who follows them, or the ones who follow them, are al-ghawun, the people who have erred, or the straying people. Right? And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, the people that basically, idolize these influencers and these celebrities, right? They basically, they are straying people, right? And these influencers and these celebrities, most of the followers they have, they are all ghawun, they are all erring, and they are all straying away from the correct path. And so it should not, the amount of followers they have should not, it should not, mesmerize us, that we see, oh, this influencer has, so many million, hundreds of millions of followers, or this celebrity has this many likes, right? And I mean, nowadays it's not just the ghawun, right? It's the bots too, right? Most of these celebrities, they just get bots on their accounts, and so it's not even a real person who is astray. It's just a fake computer model that is just giving them the likes and giving them these views. Right? And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breaks down basically the celebrity kind of culture, right? Because celebrities, really, the only thing they care about is themselves and their public image, right? That's all they care about. And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, they only care about their public image, but most of the time the people that follow them, they are themselves astray. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ. Do you not see them? Do you not see them? They do you not see them that they speak? في كل واد يهيمون. Do you not see that they are in every single valley? They're just roaming around, right? And they're basically, they have no objective, not only in this life, but also in terms of like religiosity and in terms of a higher purpose, right? They have no objective in life. And so the only thing that they do in life, these influencers, is they just roam around and people just follow them. And the people that follow them are basically astray themselves. And the people that follow them, they have no objective in life either. And these celebrities, they also have no objective in their life either. وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. And that they say that which they do not even do. And we see this really happening, like so much with, ourselves today that, we tend to, even like on a subconscious level, we tend to give these celebrities this really high, this really high status, right? And when we when we look at it from the Quran's perspective, right? Allah is saying that these celebrities, they're just roaming around, and basically the people that follow them, they are also astray. So it's not like the people that follow them have a higher objective and these celebrities have a higher objective. Is, they're just basically, going around in circles, and they're just going from one valley to another valley. And we see this happening with celebrities nowadays, that they're just going on tours. Here they do a tour, and then they go somewhere else and they do a tour, and then people show up to their tour. There's nothing intellectual about any of their programs. There's nothing that leads to critical thinking. There's nothing that leads to taqwa, which is seeking a higher purpose. It is all just entertainment. And the little that they may say, وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ, they may say something, right, that might seem like, leading towards taqwa, but they don't even do it themselves. So they, and we see this happening nowadays, that, celebrities, they will talk about taking care of the planet before they take like their own private jet, somewhere, or they will talk about, feeding the poor people before they, go to their mansion, which, has homeless people living like, 5 minutes away, right? So we see this, happening nowadays, and we should not, blindly follow them, but rather we should see past, their outside persona, and we should really understand that they are actually not worthy of us being, of us, following them, right? And any person that has any self-worth, he will understand, like, my worth is, I am worth more than just following some kind of celebrity, right? Like, I should be following my creator. I should be following the one who created me. I should be following the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one who was sent as my teacher, right? And I am worth more than following a celebrity. And like, for example, a student, right? He is going to go to the teacher that basically the teacher that has some kind of merit, right? He's not just going to go to a random person to learn about something. So in the same way, why are we following random people, right, for the objective of life, right, instead of looking for the actual, intellectuals and the people that really care about the objective of life. So in the same way, the student, if he truly values himself, then when he wants to study a subject, he will find the master of that subject. He will find the mahirul fan, right? He will find the one who has mastered that subject, right? And so in this life, technically we are like students, and we are searching for the master who can teach us the objective of this life. The master who can teach us how to navigate through this life, and that master is our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That within the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best example for you, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, he teaches us, how to navigate this life and how to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So in this life, we should really look for the master who can take us closer to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is if we truly, value our own our own selves. So that was Surah Shu'araa. It has a lot of modern advices for us today. especially with this, this whole celebrity culture, the whole Hollywood, and kind of, uh, idolizing those kind of people. It really shows us that we have to start looking at people, we have to start looking at things in a different manner. We have, as Muslims, we have a different outlook on life. Our outlook on life is not the same as another person who goes to a concert, who's just his whole life, or his or her whole life, is just for entertainment, right? Because at that time there were people, right? There were Arabs. Their whole life they just wanted to follow the poets, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically calling them out, right? وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. That the people that follow the poets, they're basically they're going astray. They have no objective in life. And so we have to ask ourselves that as Muslims, we know our objective in life, right? And if you know what your objective is, and if you're not practicing upon it, then you fall under, we ask Allah to save us, but if we know what we're supposed to do and we're not doing it, then we fall under al-maghdubi alayhim, right? But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't seek knowledge, because if we don't seek knowledge and we go astray, then we fall under wal-dallin. We fall under the dallin. And so we have to find the sirat mustaqim, and we have to look past these people in the public image, and we have to look at it with a really intellectual mind, that we have an example that's already been set out for us, right? And it's in the Quran. We don't need to look at these people and to follow them. As Muslims, we are worth more than this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want us to just look at the celebrities and the influencers and basically follow the trends that they set. And so that is why Surah Shu'araa, very very helpful surah, especially in modern times, and dealing with the modern issues of this celebrity culture and who we follow. Then we go to Surah Naml. Surah Naml, right? Surah Naml, Naml means the ant. And the reason why the surah is called Naml is because it has a story of the ant and Sulaiman alayhi salam, the ant that warned the other ants. What really stuck out to me was Sulaiman alayhi salam. We know he had the biggest army, right? And it comprised of human beings, it comprised of jinn, it comprised of animals. And what's really amazing is that this surah shows us that the animal kingdom is not just like they have these intricate societies, and they in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and like we'll see, like Hudhud, Hudhud understands so much, even though it's just a bird. And we tend to use like bird brain as like an insult to each other when we see Hudhud basically saying stuff like most people cannot even comprehend nowadays. And we see a bird saying this stuff to Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? But just on the story of the ant itself, we see what's really interesting is that Sulaiman alayhi salam, he understood the ant. He understood the ant, warning its fellow ants that this entire army is coming, and they're gonna trample upon us, so we should all run inside. And there's so many things, but the one thing that really stuck out that stuck out to me was Sulaiman alayhi salam diverted the entire army just to avoid this anthill. And this is a really beautiful thing that shows us that we have to really empathize with the other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And I mean, we should look at like all the destruction that we're causing in this dunya, like the ecosystems that we are destroying, right? Whether it's with logging, destroying the Amazon rainforest, or destroying the ocean, or destroying the rivers, right? We have to understand, like Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? Even though he just heard this one bit, he diverted the entire army to save these ants, right? And it's because he understood them. And nowadays we, on some level, we understand how intricate these creatures are, right? And it's, I mean, there's many scientific breakthroughs that are currently happening, that may or may not help us understand the language of the animals, right? But to some level, we understand a lot of what these animals are saying, and we're able to communicate, right, with these animals. But unfortunately, we don't sympathize with them, and we don't feel like we have to share the earth with them. We feel like, as human beings, that the earth is only for us, and we are at the top of the food chain, and so we can destroy it. We can exploit the resources of this earth as much as we want. But truly, what this story, just this one story, what this shows us, and what the dua of Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he said, ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأدخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. That when Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he heard this, he smiled. He smiled and he sympathized with the ants, and of course he diverted the army, right? And he made a dua. He said, "Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inspire and bestow upon me the power and ability that I may be grateful for your favors which you have bestowed upon me and my parents, and that I may do righteous good deeds that will please you, and admit me by your mercy among your righteous slaves." And so this really stuck out to me, that Sulaiman alayhi salam, he diverted the entire army, and he sympathized with the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though it was an insignificant creation according to us. But according to Allah, and just the statement of this ant, right? What this ant said, قالت نملة يا أيها النمل ادخلوا مساكنكم, right? That the queen ant said that, all of you ants, you guys should, enter your dwellings, meaning go into the earth. لا يحطمنكم سليمان وجنوده وهم لا يشعرون. They should not crush you. Sulaiman and his army should not crush you while they have no idea. Right? So it shows us that the animal kingdom is more intricate and is more, they're not as dumb as we thought, basically, right? Like, we think of the animal kingdom as these, all these dumb animals, but they're actually much more intelligent than we give them due credit, right? And this story will highlight that with the story of the ant, or this surah will highlight that with the story of the ant, and also with the next story, which was really interesting, which was the story of Hudhud. So the story of Hudhud, basically he was an important part of Sulaiman alayhi salam's army. And if you look at like the books of Tafasir and stuff, they say like he was in charge of searching for the water, and so he was an important part of the army, and basically he was gone, right? And so Sulaiman alayhi salam was extremely angry at this, because of course, it was probably causing like a logistical nightmare. And so Hudhud came afterwards, after some time, and he said to Sulaiman, I have come across some knowledge, that which you have no idea about, and I have come to you from Saba with true tidings. And notice how وَجِئْتُكَ مِنْ سَبَإٍ بِنَبَإٍ يَقِينٍ. Notice how he kind of, he kind of rhymes it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically keeps that style, right? So we can see here that this is what the bird is saying. A bird is saying this, like, I have come across something which you don't know. And I have come to you from Saba with some clear and some, some legit information. Inni wajadtu imra'atan, and this is amazing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually quoting a bird. Like Allah, the creator of all creation, is for our benefit. He is quoting, his creation, but not like a person, not like a human being, not like a nabi, but he is quoting. In the previous page he was quoting an ant, and now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is quoting a bird. And so we see here, this is just something to think about. Whatever lata'if you can take, or whatever benefits you can take from that, you may take. But this was something that was very interesting to me, like how Allah is quoting even what we consider the most insignificant of his creation, right? Which is just some bird, right? But here the bird is saying, and the bird is saying some stuff, like some real deep stuff. Inni wajadtu imra'atan tamlikuhum, right? Wa utiyat min kulli shay'in wa laha 'arshun 'azim. I have seen a woman that is ruling over them, and she has been given everything, right? She has been given min kulli shay'in. She has been given everything. وَلَهَا عَرْشٌ عَظِيمٌ, and on top of that she has a magnificent throne. Right? We see here that, a lot of times, we see, like, us Muslims, we have an issue with, with women being in charge of anything, and we often we find people quoting the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, like, anything that a woman rules over, right, it will never flourish. And we fail to understand that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that specifically for the Sassanid Empire, right? That the Sassanid Empire was ruled by a woman, and by the way, that woman, she basically double crossed two people, right? She double crossed two people, and so she was not your average, woman, but she backstabbed two of the previous heirs to the throne, and then basically she was made in charge of the throne. And so that hadith is very specific to the queen of the Sassanid Empire, right? But we see here that unlike the queen of the Sassanid Empire, this queen, the queen of Sheba, she is extremely intelligent. She is very intelligent, right? And so we see here that a person who rules over the people, whether that is a male or a female, it does not really matter. What actually matters is how they rule. And we see here that she ruled in a very good manner, in the best manner. So the bird is now saying she has been given everything and she has a magnificent throne, right? And so he singles out the throne, like this is something, very epic. وَجَدْتُهَا وَقَوْمَهَا يَسْجُدُونَ لِلشَّمْسِ. I saw her and her people, they are prostrating to the sun. مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. And we see here, like, this is now where the bird is going to start getting real intellectual. Besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. And it's amazing how a bird is saying this, right? Remember, this is, Allah is saying this to us, right? But Allah is quoting a bird. So it's actually a bird that's saying this, right? And a bird is not receiving, like, divine inspiration from Allah to say this. No, the bird understands this. So when we say bird brain, we should really think about, just think about this story. That this bird, it understood. وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. And shaitan had, zayyana, he basically, zayyana means to, like, make something look real nice. Like, zuyyina lin-nas, like Allah says in Ali Imran, that these things have been made to look real pretty for people, to make to look real appealing for people, right? Like, buying cars, buying houses, من النساء حب الشهوات من النساء, women, uh, right, owning cars, والبنين, multiple children, والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة, like just having, all these, different types of wealth and of assets, والخيل المسومة, and like nowadays we have these cars, cars and trucks and, means of transportation. It has been made appealing to people, right? So it is appealing to people, all of these stuff. And so we see here the bird is saying that Shaitan made worshipping the sun appealing to them, meaning he is indirectly, he's saying that these people are intelligent. These people are not stupid, they are intelligent, but they have been deceived by Shaitan. And another thing we can see over here, besides the fact that a bird is saying all this, another thing we can see here is that Shaitan, right, even the most intelligent people can be deceived by Shaitan. So we should never think that, oh, this person is so intelligent, this person is a leading scientist, why isn't he Muslim? This person is so intelligent, why isn't he Muslim? But Shaitan can make even the most intelligent and intellectual people, Shaitan can deceive them as well, if he makes something look muzayyan. So وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم, Shaitan has basically made their actions, meaning their shirk, he has made it look appealing to them. He has made it look like the right thing to do. فَصَدَّهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ, and so he has prevented them from the true path. فَهُمْ لَا يَهْتَدُونَ, and that is why they are not guided. So we see here that the bird is saying that these people are intelligent, they are intellectuals, they have just been deceived by Shaitan, and he has basically made their actions seem good to them, and that is why they have not been guided. Right? And then he goes on. I mean, this is the bird is saying all this, right? The bird is going to say next, like, أَلَّا يَسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ الَّذِي يُخْرِجُ الْخَبَأَ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تُخْفُونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ, that they, they do not receive guidance, the guidance that they, make sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I mean, just think about, the bird is actually saying this. الَّذِي يُخْرِجُ الْخَبَأَ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the one who brings out the hidden from the heavens and the earth. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا تُخْفُونَ وَمَا تُعْلِنُونَ, and he knows that which you conceal and that which you reveal. And also we see here that if we just go back to the tafsir of what this bird would do, right? This bird would know where to dig for water, right? And we see here the bird is basically attributing his own job, that actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that brings out the hidden, in the samawat and in the earth. And that's just a beautiful thing. So and it's truly amazing that what this bird is saying is just so deep, and there's so much, reflection a person can do on just this statement, right? And then Allahu la ilaha illa huwa rabbul arsh al-azim, that Allah is the one, there is no God but him. And because the Queen of Sheba had a really magnificent throne, here the bird is saying, but the throne of Allah, he is the Lord of the Almighty throne, the supreme throne, meaning his throne is Queen of Sheba's throne is nothing compared to Allah's arsh, right? And so just that, the story of Hudhud, and then Sulaiman alayhi salam says, okay, we shall soon see, right, if you're telling the truth or if you are from the kadhibin. And what's amazing is that when we were studying, one of our teachers said that, like, nowadays, if you look at what technology is trying to do, they are trying to recreate all the gifts and all the blessings that were given to Sulaiman alayhi salam. So we see like Sulaiman alayhi salam had control of the wind, and so we see nowadays we have like the modern airplanes and jets, and we also have now control over the wind, and we can fly around, right? And then how Sulaiman alayhi salam, he had the jinn that would go deep into the ocean to mine, and so we see nowadays we have ocean mining, and we have deep ocean exploration, and we have submarines, and we have submersibles, and we've reached the ocean floor. And like how Sulaiman alayhi salam would build magnificent buildings and structures that which were not possible by human beings. We see nowadays we have massive structures and tall skyscrapers which would not be possible at all without modern technology, right? And this other area, which is understanding the language of animals, right? That is also something that was given to Sulaiman alayhi salam. And if we and the thing is, Sulaiman alayhi salam, he was given these gifts, but they were a lot different than the modern gifts. For example, like Sulaiman alayhi salam didn't need, a specific shape of a wing, on a Boeing 747 to transport, and then for it to go a certain speed, for it to be able to transport 500 people, right? He didn't need that kind of that kind of restriction, right? So his gift, he was given the gift of being able to control the wind, in the sense that he didn't need to go through like to follow like the laws of physics. And in the same way, he could tell the jinn to go and mine from the deep ocean, right? He didn't need to worry about sending people down there, how they're going to get oxygen, the immense pressure, and also like the claustrophobia and all of that, and the fact that at any moment they can be sucked up by a giant squid, right? He didn't need to worry about that kind of drawback. So he was given these blessings without the drawbacks. And so that is the reason why no one can ever have Sulaiman alayhi salam's kingdom, is because no matter how much they mastered the skies, there is always going to be drawback. Even if they have an Iron Man suit, right, there is still going to be the drawback that what if the thrusters stop working and they fall to the ground, right? So there is always going to be this drawback. And the only time there is no drawbacks is when you are given that power by a divine being. Because when Allah gives you that power from His side, then He doesn't give you there are no drawbacks in that power. So when Allah gave Sulaiman alayhi salam the control for wind, it wasn't like the wind was unpredictable, and if there was turbulence, then the wind would like stop working and people would fall to their death. It wasn't like that, right? In the same way, it wasn't like the jinn were making these elaborate structures, and at any moment those structures could collapse, right? And it could basically kill everyone that's inside. It wasn't like that. We have those drawbacks nowadays, right? But these drawbacks, they were not present for Sulaiman alayhi salam, and this was the gift that the Prophet ﷺ gave to Sulaiman alayhi salam, that he is not going to give to anyone else ever again. And so regarding that, even though the people, one could say, yeah, maybe we're trying to get back to all the blessings that Sulaiman alayhi salam had, but we have to understand Sulaiman alayhi salam had those blessings without the drawbacks. Like Dawood alayhi salam could control or could mend and could shape the chain mail, but he didn't have the drawback of having to deal with the heat and having to deal with the fumes and all of that. You see, so the prophets, when they're given these blessings, they don't have there is no catch. right? But when we get these blessings, we have to go through the laws of physics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on this earth. And so we see here that understanding animals, that is something that we are also trying to understand the language of animals. And in a couple years, especially with like artificial intelligence, in a couple of years, probably within the next next decade, we would be able to understand a few species and how they communicate, right? We would be able to understand some basic some basic elements of their communication, right? And that is on top of the fact that we can already understand some of the species, like the primates that are taught how to sign, right? We can understand what they're saying. We can understand other animals that maybe use hand signals, or they may use a certain type of noise or a certain type of squeak. We may be able to understand it, but to understand it like Sulaiman alayhi salam, to truly, for like how we see in like the movies how the animals can talk, that may be achievable, but there will be some kind of drawback and some kind of limitation, right? That is not that we're not aware of at the present moment, right? And the idea is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to explore these avenues, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to use this against the people on the day of judgment. That you could understand the speech of animals, yet that did not bring you to worship me. And so that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants people to explore these avenues. And so that was the story of the Hudhud and of the Namla in Surah An-Naml, which is really, really, really interesting, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immortalized these animals, right? These animals, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immortalized them and their statements in the Quran. Another thing we see over here is the intelligence of the queen, right? The queen was very intelligent. So before making a rash decision, she consulted with her people, right? And then, on top of that, when Sulaiman alayhi salam brought her throne, what's really interesting, Sulaiman alayhi salam had the throne changed, right? He had the throne edited, and basically he wanted to test her intelligence. And so when he asked her, or it was, or someone asked her, "Ahakadha arshuk?" that is your throne like this? قالت, she said, كأنه هو. It is like, or perhaps this is my throne. So she understood that this was actually her throne. It's possible. So she basically, he asked her in a subtle way, "Is your throne like this?" And she answered in a subtle way that perhaps this is my throne itself. كأنه هو, right? That perhaps this is my exact throne, right? And then we see Sulaiman alayhi salam's persistence on on making sure that people understand. So Sulaiman alayhi salam understands that this the queen is intelligent, but still he wants to make sure that they understand fully the concept of the ghaib, and how not everything is what it seems. And so that is why he took her to the Crystal Palace, and he took her to the crystal walkway, and there was water flowing underneath, and it was made in such a way that if you did not know, right? The glass was so clear that if you did not know that there was glass, you would have understood that you are going to now step onto the water. And so she did not know, right? She did not see the glass was there, right? And the reason why Sulaiman alayhi salam took her to this palace is to make her understand that just because you don't see something doesn't mean that it's not there. So just because you don't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't mean He is not there. And so she understood, and she immediately said, وَأَسْلَمْتُ مَعَ سُلَيْمَانَ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ, that I have submitted myself with Sulaiman alayhi salam to the Lord of all mankind, to the Lord of all that exists in all the worlds. So that was something that was really interesting, was even though she already said وَكُنَّا مُسْلِمِينَ, right? When Sulaiman alayhi salam showed her her throne, she already said, like, I already believe in what you believe. But still he wants to make sure that there can be no area of doubt that's left. And this is something that we can kind of take notes from, that nowadays we tend to just sit back and relax if we're satisfied with one area of the deen, like, and we don't ever think, like, I have to make sure that I don't just believe from one perspective, from one angle, right? That I have to believe from all the angles. So we can believe from, and I mean, an example of this is, I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I read the Quran and it's just so amazing. And so the only way I can logically comprehend this book is if I understand this book is from a divine being, right? But we have to make sure we have iman from all the different perspectives. So then we reflect on maybe the life of the Prophet, and we see how the Prophet ﷺ, he basically gave his life towards something, and he never benefited it from it in the world, right? That he lived as a poor person, and his whole life he lived as a poor person. And so we reflect on that the only way logically a person could live such a life is if that person was calling to a higher purpose and was calling to the truth. The only way a person could endure is if that person was calling to the truth. And then we believe in from a different perspective, right? And we look at the samawat, right? أَفَلَمْ يَتَدَبَّرُوا, right? That we make tadabbur, and we reflect on the samawat and on the creation of Allah. That, oh, look how beautiful the moon is, or look how beautiful the sky is, right? And the only logical explanation that I can come up with and that I can understand is that there has to be a divine creator, and there has to be an originator of this universe. All of this could not have just happened on its own. And then I look at, for example, the Naml and the ants, and how they behave and how they interact, and how they have like an entire society, and they have language. Basically through chemical reactions they communicate with one another. And this is amazing, like how we communicate with each other through like speech, right, through sound. But the ants and the other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they communicate with each other with chemical reactions, right? And so they basically perceive these chemical reactions, and they understand these different protocols, right? And it's amazing, like who taught them how to do this, right? And we reflect on that, and then we can see, okay, like the only explanation is Allah, like a divine being had to have taught them how to do this, right? We look at like the hudhud and the bird, and how the bird behave in general, and like just knowing, because I have a bird at home, it's just amazing. Like at nighttime, even though the light in the house is on, like at nighttime they will go to rest and they will go to sleep. And in the morning, just before, like, suhoor, they will get up and they will start chirping, right? And so it's amazing how they have this, like what we have this, the circadian rhythm. They also have that, right? And it's just amazing, like how such a small creature has this system that it basically sticks to. And even though, like, we might, fall asleep one day and we might sleep in one day, but the birds, like, they don't sleep in. They're up every single morning, right? They're up and they're getting the rizq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So it's just, we have to bring iman, not just from one angle, right? Don't have this one dimensional iman. Have, the three dimensional or the four dimensional iman, where you have iman from all these different angles. So if one of your angles is ever attacked, you have the other angles that can back it up. And this is truly what this ayah is speaking to me. And inshallah, hopefully it speaks to you in that way. From there, we go to the story. So we go to the next surah, which is Surah Qasas. Surah Qasas is amazing because, like Surah Taha, it talks about the story of Musa alayhi salam, but from like a completely different angle. Like it's just, it's really cinematic. It just starts off like in a completely different setting, right? So you would, like, you would need to understand certain basic plot points to understand what's going on, right? Um, but even if you don't understand the plot points, even if it's, if Surah Qasas is the first surah that you start with the story of Musa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does a quick recap before it, like, نتلو عليك من نبأ موسى وفرعون بالحق لقوم يؤمنون. And then Allah says, like, okay, Fir'aun was doing this, and basically he was, subjugating a people, and this and this. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, the story of the mother of Musa alayhi salam, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically, from the moment, like, Musa alayhi salam was born, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was basically like, uh, nowadays we say, like, playing 4D chess. So Allah was basically playing, placing um his I don't know how to say this, but like his his means in position. So everyone had a role to play. The mother of Musa alayhi salam had a role to play, right? And then the sister of Musa alayhi salam had a role to play, and then Musa alayhi salam will grow up and he'll have a role to play. Harun, like all, to bring down Fir'aun, right? Everyone had a role to play in the grand scheme of this, and so everyone was like in an arena, and they basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was utilizing all of them. And it's just really amazing to think about, like, what is Allah using me for? Like what is my role to play in the grand scheme of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation and the dunya? So this is something that we should, reflect on. Like, of course, our collective goal, right, is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. But like, what is my individual objective in life, right? Like, how am I going to, help this deen? How am I going to do it? Am I, going to give da'wah? Am I going to give da'wah to non-Muslims? Am I going to go the debate with the Christians and the Jews route? Am I going to bring something new to the table? Like, not new in the deen, but new as in from a different perspective. Maybe I am going to study the Quran and I am also going to study microbiology, or am I going to become, a Muslim astronaut and benefit my deen in that way? So every one of us have, an individual goal in terms of our deen, and so this is something that we should, you know, try to find. Like, what is my goal for Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, right? And so that was like, Musa alayhi salam's, her role was to make sure that Musa alayhi salam stays alive in those early moments, right? The sister of Musa alayhi salam was to make sure that the baby reaches the palace of Fir'aun, right? Her whole life led up to that moment, to make sure my brother gets to the palace of Fir'aun, right? And then to make sure that my mother, that Fir'aun that Musa alayhi salam gets back to my mother. And she was the one that went to the palace, and she said, like, I know someone who can nurse baby Moses, because he wasn't drinking from anyone else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَحَرَّمْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَرَاضِعَ مِنْ قَبْلِ, right? That we made everyone else, haram, right? And basically his sister, right, like that was her moment, right, to shine. That was her role to play in the grand scheme of things, right? And so that was in the story of Musa alayhi salam. But then we go to an interesting character, which we can really see nowadays, and that is the story of Qarun. Qarun was a really rich dude who was from the nation of Musa, so he was from the Bani Israel, right? Just trying to look for the story. So basically, he was from the nation of Musa alayhi salam, and he had a lot of wealth. And this wealth, basically, it really got to his head, and it really corrupted him. And the thing about wealth is that everyone thinks wealth, it won't corrupt me. And, if I had, $5 billion, I would be giving in charity, and I would end world hunger, and I would be, promoting the next, the next phase of, of human intellectualism, and I would be, supporting all of these masajid, and I would do this. But wealth, it corrupts people, right? It corrupts people. And the more wealth a person accumulates, the more it corrupts that person. And this is really why the Sahaba, whenever they would get any money, they would immediately give it in sadaqah, right? And they wouldn't basically sit on wealth, right? As soon as they would get wealth, they would give it in sadaqah. They would give it in charity, and then basically they would use it up, right? Because they understood this, that wealth, it corrupts people, right? And we see Qarun, this is truly what happened to him. So inna Qarun kana min qawmi Musa, he was from the people of Musa, فَبَغَى عَلَيْهِمْ, but he behaved arrogantly, towards the people of Musa alayhi salam. Meaning he was from the people of Musa, he was from the Bani Israel, but he didn't like the Bani Israel, right? He thought he was better, so he tried to act like he was, from the people of Fir'aun. But he was not. He was from the people of Musa. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ, and we gave him. Notice how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always going to bring back, we gave him all this money. مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ مَا إِنَّ مَفَاتِحَهُ لَتَنُوءُ بِالْعُصْبَةِ أُولِي الْقُوَّةِ, that the keys to his vault had to be carried by, a group of really strong, well-built people. So the amount of money he had was insane. The people that, just to have access to his vault, the people had to carry these huge keys, right? And people tried to, they tried to advise him. They said to him, "La tafrah," like don't have this kind of mentality, right? Like don't be ungrateful. Don't be happy with this ungratefulness, right? Don't be happy with what you have, right? And forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah really doesn't like those who are arrogant, right? And basically the people, they gave him advice. They gave him advice, and he did not take this advice. And he said that, "Oh, I know, like I earned all of this from my own side." And we really see this nowadays. Like, you see people, they call themselves self-made billionaires. Like, "Oh, this person is a self-made billionaire." But really, if that person was left on their own, they would not be able to make any money at all, right? So there is no such thing as a self-made billionaire. That billionaire or that millionaire, on the backs of other people, right? Through the support and through the advice of other people, and of course, through the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that ultimately gives. But even just in terms of this dunya, like, there is no one who can claim to be a self-made anything, because there is no self-made anything, right? If you put someone on an island with nothing but themselves, then then if that person somehow becomes a billionaire, then you could say he's a self-made billionaire, right? But even then, you would say Allah gave him all that wealth. So truly, like, what he's saying, this rhetoric that he is spewing, like, this is something that we see people do today, right? And we know about people, especially these billionaires. We know how they were before, right? Before they became rich. Many of them, they struggled. They had no wealth. They were from poor neighborhoods. But then after they become rich, then they have this different mentality. And the reason why is because the money, it corrupts people. And this is something that people don't seem to understand. And that people seem to think that they will have, that they can get millions of dollars richer and they will be normal, right? They will be just like how they are today. But this is a delusion. Because wealth, truly, it corrupts people, and we see how it corrupted Qarun to the core, so much so that he actually thinks that he is a self-made billionaire, right? And Allah is saying, like, does he not know that Allah destroyed people that were much more, advanced, that were much more wealthy, and they were much more stronger than him, and Allah destroyed them, right? And so this is something like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, like, this person has so much arrogance in him, and that he's so delusional, and he doesn't realize that Allah destroyed people. Allah destroyed people that were much, like, he's nothing. Like, Allah destroyed people that were much more arrogant. Allah destroyed people that had a lot more wealth. Like, this guy is nothing compared to, like, Nimrud, or Bukht Nasr, or just look at Fir'aun. This guy is nothing compared to Fir'aun, right? And then, like, we see Qarun, and we see this with the current wealthy today. فَخَرَجَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ, right? Like, he basically came out to his people in his zina, meaning he was flexing on everyone, right? And basically, when he did this, then the people that, of course, they want the dunya, right? The people that want the dunya, they said, "Oh man, we wish we had that which Qarun has. He has such a great fortune," right? But the people of knowledge, they said, like, "No man, like, that's not what you should be going after. Thawabullahi khayr." that the reward from Allah is so much better for the one who has iman and the one who does good deeds, and it will only be attained to those who are patient. So notice how Allah said the people that have knowledge, they said that the reward of Allah is much better because they understand the nature of this dunya, right? We can know the nature of the dunya, but knowing something is a lot different than understanding something. So we may know that the dunya is gonna go and the dunya never lasts, and no matter how much money you have, you'll never be happy. You'll always want more, right? But the people of knowledge, the true people of knowledge, they will understand the nature of this dunya. And, it's a lot different, right? When you know something and when you truly understand the reality of something, right? And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us from amongst the people of knowledge, and that we truly understand the nature of this dunya, and we don't get tempted by these celebrities and these wealthy people that, oh, we also want to be billionaires and we also want to have this money, and we delude ourselves that we will get all this money and we won't be entrapped by this wealth, and we won't be corrupted by this wealth. And the example of this corruption of wealth is like if you look at Lord of the Rings, that dragon, right? The dragon that basically kicked out all the dwarves, and basically it took over that heap of gold, right? And that dragon became so corrupted by that gold, right? That dragon became so corrupted by that gold, and it became delusional because of the gold, and I think it also became blind, in its actual eyes. And I mean that's something like truly you can see, like everyone knows this, that extreme wealth corrupts, right? But it's only the ahlul ilm, right? The people that have been given knowledge, right? They have been given this knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They understand the reality of the corruption of wealth, and they try to stay away from it, right? And basically we all know what happened to Qarun. It's very famous. فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِ الْأَرْضِ. The entire earth basically swallowed him and all of his his mansion, his palace, whatever he had, it swallowed everything up, right? And no one could help him. No one could help him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Next we go to, and it's a long one today, but we have one more, and this was really important, right? So just, it's the last, but most certainly not the least, probably the most interesting thing. And that is Ankabut. And what has always bugged me was why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gotta do the spider so dirty, like in the Quran. Like, why does Allah just diss the spider? وَإِنَّ أَوْهَنَ الْبُيُوتِ لَبَيْتُ الْعَنْكَبُوتِ. Like, the spider just makes this really beautiful spider web, and it's weak, right? But like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just says like the most weak of all the houses is the house of the spider. But what's really interesting was I was watching this documentary, and they said that the strongest material in nature, right? The strongest material in nature, and I think it was tensile strength. So like in terms of like how much like pulling, right? That kind of strength, right? The strongest material in nature was spider silk, right? So in nature, the strongest material, I'm not sure if they have anything synthetic This is really interesting stuff, material science. But the strongest material known to man, right, is spider silk. And if you scale up spider silk to the size of a modern rope, it would be indestructible, basically. You would not be able to tear it. And there was this documentary about how aircraft carriers, they need to, these jets, right? The short takeoff and landing, these STOL, right? Or short takeoff and landing, these short takeoff and landing jets, right? Like the aircraft carrier jets, like the U.S. Navy, they have all these jets, right? The F-14s, and now they have like the F-18s and all of these jets, right? What they do is they lift off from the carrier, right? And they basically slingshot, right, from the carrier. But when it comes to landing, they gotta release this hook from the back, and when they land, that hook basically latches onto a I forgot what it's called, but it's basically like it's a Kevlar rope. It latches onto that, and that rope basically, once it detects the plane is attached, it pulls. So it pulls the plane back, and it stops the plane, in that really short landing runway, right? And so in that documentary, they were looking at other materials, because before they were using chains, and every couple of they were using steel wires or steel cables, and every couple of uses they had to really maintain the steel cable, and they had to replace the steel cable every couple of somethings, right? And it was really they really needed like a much better material for that. And so they mentioned like the best would be, the most ideal would be spider silk. Like if they could make an entire rope out of spider silk, they would, it would be much stronger than even steel. And if you scale up a normal steel rope, if you scale up a spider's web to that same thickness, the spider's web would be much stronger than that steel, right? And so what's really interesting to me was Allah chose the spider's web, right, and the spider, because if we were the size of a fly, right, that spider's web would be indestructible for us, right? But as human beings, when to our perspective, the spider's web is like nothing. Like it's just nothing. Like, you don't even feel it. You just use like a broom to kind of just do away with the spider's web, right? But to the fly, right, if we were the size of that fly, that would be like indestructible. We're stuck. We can never escape. And so in the same way, the people that don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they may have these claims, and they may have these proofs that to us may appear like spider silk, meaning to us they may appear strong and indestructible, but to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala it is like so insignificant, like there's like, it just needs a duster and that spider web is completely gone. And so we may get trapped in that net, and we may feel like we can never escape, like that fly that can never escape. But it's truly a matter of perspective, right? And so just like how to us that spider web is insignificant, right? And of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَهُ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, right? He is much greater, He's much higher, right? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no matter how strong that thing may appear to us to Allah it is weaker and it is more insignificant than even the spider web. And so really it's a beautiful example because it really brings in the perspective of things, right? And so many times we may see something like, from our perspective, it just seems so indestructible. And we get caught up with this, we get webbed up in this net. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just like the, Baytul Ankabut, right? It's just so insignificant and just easily Allah just does away with it. Like how we just easily brush away the spider webs from, the shelves or the corners of our houses. Just like that, easily Allah just does away with the proofs or the claims of the people that don't believe in Him. And so that really, really stuck out to me. And for a long time, I just, just couldn't understand why Allah just, this is the spider web, right? Like, we think like I mean spiders are so cool, right? But truly it is a matter of perspective, right? Like to that fly, the spider web is indestructible, but to us human beings, the spider web is nothing, right? We just, dust it away. So in the same way, to us something might seem indestructible, but to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala it is nothing, and it'll just be dusted away, easily. And with that, inshallah, that was some good reflection, alhamdulillah. But truly that was nothing, like, compared to the Quran, like the entire surah, we just focused on a few ayat, right? And the thing about the Quran is, like, the Quran is the one thing that you cannot, in one lifetime, you cannot take its full benefit, right? And that is the reason why the Quran is going to continue existing even after the Day of Judgment. And in Jannah, we will also be able to take, the fruits and the reflections of the Quran. And inshallah, that we will take it directly from the speaker himself, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses us during the next last couple of nights of this blessed month. Truly it has been a quick month, right? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses us during the next couple of nights. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to be from those who are forgiven in this month. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He instills the love of the Quran into our hearts, and that He keeps that love there, and that He keeps us, He makes us companions of the Quran in this life, and in the next life He makes the Quran a companion for us. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us this enthusiasm for just understanding and reflecting on His words, and that He gives us this love from His side, this divine love for His speech. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes it easy for all the Muslims around the world, especially in Palestine. Subhanallah, they are barred from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the masjid, right? This is one of the blessings that we take for granted, that we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we can worship it freely in most of the countries. But subhanallah, in one of the most holiest places on this earth, right, where there are multiple thousands of prophets that are buried there, and subhanallah, they cannot even worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the masjid, and they are mercilessly beaten. And it's just really bad. And every single Ramadan the same thing happens, right? The same thing happens every single Ramadan. It's the same people. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He If Allah does not intend to guide them, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He destroys them. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if He does not intend to guide them, we ask Allah to cast His la'na upon them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give the people of Palestine, to give the Muslims, sabrun jameel, and to Allah mathabbithum, that He makes them firm, that He makes them firm and He makes their hearts firm. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses them and He gives them an immense reward. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.